Proved them wrong all along the way. We won Iowa. We won New Hampshire. And we did a landslide in Nevada. And we're going to win here in Michigan on March 10th. But I need all of y'all to help us do that. Bernie says change doesn't happen from the top down, it happens from the bottom up. So we all got to get out and fight for a revolution. So I need all of you guys to come out this weekend to get the vote out, knock doors, make phone calls, download the Burn app, and talk to all of your friends and family and make sure that they get out to vote on March 10th. When we stand together, together we will win. Thank you, Detroit.
To continue our speaking program tonight, please give a warm welcome to fourth-generation Detroiter and environmental justice organizer, Justin Onwenu.
Detroit, how are y'all doing? My name is Justin Onwenu. I'm a community organizer based in Detroit, and every single day I help residents fight for clean air and clean water. So if you're here to enact a Green New Deal, let me hear you. If you're here to make sure that health care is a human right, let me hear you. And if you're here to make sure that your zip code doesn't determine your destiny, let me hear you. So like I said, I'm here to fight climate change. I'm here to make sure that health care is a right for everyone, and I'm here to make sure that water and clean air is a right for everyone. In short, I'm here to make Bernie Sanders the next president of the United States. Now, throughout history and still today, people have told us that what we're fighting for is impossible. They've told us that our sights are set too high and that our vision of a fair and just America is going to be crushed by the political realities that we face. But this time, like many other times in our history, we know that this time is different. It was James Baldwin who once said, "I know that what I'm asking for is impossible, but in today's day and age, impossible is the least we can demand." For human history, and American history in particular, is a perpetual testimony to the achievement of the impossible. Now, in Detroit, it's clear that we need to fight. It's clear that we need to organize. It's clear that we need to knock doors and call our neighbors, call our friends to make sure that Bernie Sanders is elected. Because every single time we organize, there are people who are going to tell us that we should wait, that this election is too important to take a chance, that we just can't take a chance by electing Bernie. We need a moderate. We need someone who's backed by corporate media, by corporate establishment. And what I'm here to say is that unless we address the systematic failures that have harmed Detroiters for too long, we're going to end up with Trump in 2020, and we may end up with Trump Jr. in 2024. So when people tell you to wait, I want you to remember the words of Dr. King over 50 years ago. He said, "How long? Not long, because an eye cannot live forever." How long? Because unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word. How long? Because change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. So remember this moment. Don't lose that fire. Don't lose that hope that's inspired so many to the change that we demand. And let's make Bernie Sanders the next president of the United States. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage former president of the United Auto Workers International Union, Bob King.
Wow, what a crowd. I'm so proud to be here with fighters for justice. I am the former president of the UAW who just said, I'm a long time active member of the UAW and fighter in our union. I'm currently also a member of the American Federation of Teachers in Michigan and the Lecturers Employee Union. There are many reasons why I'm supporting Bernie Sanders, why I'm passionate about us electing him as our next president. Education, the environment, healthcare. But the one I want to focus on tonight is trade, because terrible trade agreements have devastated working America in a number of ways. First of all, just under NAFTA, not including all the other bad agreements, we've lost 700,000 to 1 million manufacturing jobs in the United States of America. You think if you're a good, hard-working, loyal worker, you just want to take care of your family, and because of greed, your corporation decides to take your job and move it to Mexico for 1/10 or less of the wages you're making. Is that right? No. Then what happens to your community? When that plant closes, your community small businesses are really hurt. Restaurant owners, dentists, insurance agents, all these people that relied on the good wages of workers to support them and their families are devastated. Then you've got public sector workers. When the tax base goes down, we don't have the money to educate our children that we should have. We don't have the money for the police and fire and other public sector workers. And then what happens to the healthcare industry? When you lose those good jobs with good insurance, doctors, lawyers, hospitals go out of business. So these terrible agreements devastate our communities. The second thing they do is they take away workers' bargaining power. I've been involved in hundreds and hundreds of negotiations, contract negotiations in manufacturing. Every single time, the boss, the employer, comes to the workers and says, take cuts in your pay or take cuts in your wages or we're going to move your job to Mexico. Is that right? The third thing that happens is Mexican workers and workers in low-wage countries around the world are being exploited by these same corporations. So the only candidate who has always been there for workers, courageously has stood up, campaigned against, and voted against the NAFTA and every terrible agreement is who? It's Bernie. And we know, let me tell you, I hope you already know this, but his opposition has not only voted for every one of these terrible agreements, he's campaigned for it, he's advocated for it. We need a Bernie Sanders to stand up for working people, right? Here's the other final point. It doesn't matter whether you're black, brown, white, yellow, whatever race you are. All you want is a decent job. You're willing to work hard so you can take care of your family. And it's these same corporations who stole our jobs and moved them to Mexico and low-wage countries that go out and bankroll candidates who then go and try to divide us in race. They say, oh, immigrants stole your job. Baloney. Who stole our job? These greedy corporations in Wall Street, right? So every one of us has to, between now and Tuesday, we have to win Michigan. Every one of us has got to commit to go out and talk to at least 5 family or friends, make sure they vote, and make sure they know why it is so absolutely important for Bernie. When we stand together, when we fight in solidarity, what do? We win. Are you ready to win? All right.
Welcome to the stage, auto worker, expecting father, union activist, Bernie supporter from Flint, Michigan, Sean Crawford.
Oh my God, I love the energy here tonight. What an honor to be here. My name is Sean Crawford, and I'm originally from a small city about an hour north of here. You might have heard about it, Flint, Michigan. Oh, yeah. Show Flint some love. One of the things that Flint is well known for is the Flint sit-down strike. This was before the UAW had ever been formed. These brave strikers took over the plant for over 30 days in the middle of the winter and brought the largest corporation on the planet to its knees. And it is in that spirit that I support Bernie Sanders. It is with that heart that I support Bernie Sanders, because these sit-downers, they didn't have anyone telling them what to do. They were independent-minded. They knew what had to be done for working-class people. And Bernie Sanders has done that consistently for his entire career. And I'm going to tell you why that means so much to me, because I grew up in Flint, Michigan, looking around, seeing how my city had been destroyed by these bad trade policies. How my city had been destroyed by corporate greed. And the establishment, it doesn't matter what party you're in, they couldn't care. They didn't look at people like me and people in my city like we were worth anything, to the point to where our entire city was poisoned with the water. That's right, and I still want to know why Rick Snyder's not in jail. Because you know damn well if it was you or me that poisoned the citizens of Flint, they'd call us a terrorist. But if you're a rich Republican governor, you can go on and retire and live your life. And that's a crime. And let me contrast with someone who I highly respect, Bernie Sanders. What has he done? He has consistently, through his entire career, opposed bad trade deals. He opposed the war on drugs. And I'm so happy I can smoke my legal weed here in Michigan. Thank you very much. Bernie Sanders opposed the prison industrial complex that Joe Biden was the architect of. And how clear of a contrast can you get than that? The war in Iraq, need I mention that? Oh my God, if Joe Biden gets this nomination. For eternal war, oh no. We need to spend these resources at home where they're needed so we can heal our cities. So we can heal our communities in Flint, Pontiac, Saginaw, and Detroit. But the main reason that I love this movement and the Bernie Sanders campaign, because Bernie's just one guy. But look around you. Look at all of us. We are the revolution we've been looking for. We are the people we have been waiting for. Because together we can make this movement happen. It does not just end with one candidate. It does not just end with one election. All of us need to go back to our home communities and our home cities and run for county commissioner and city council and do everything in our power to build this movement. Thank you so much, everybody. Solidarity.
Next to the stage, Detroit City Council Pro Tem, Mary Sheffield.
Detroit, Michigan. I don't know about you all, but I'm fired up. Fired up. Yes, is such an honor and a privilege to be here today. Again, I am Detroit City Council President Pro Tem Mary Sheffield. Thank you. The youngest person ever elected to the City Council 70 years ago today at the age of 26 years old. And I'm here today to briefly tell you all why I am supporting Senator Bernie Sanders to be the next president of the United States of America. Yes. Although we live in the best country in the world, we are far from having a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so what I believe that we need is a paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift in this country. And Senator Bernie Sanders is the only candidate in this race who represents this paradigm shift that is needed in this country. He is the only candidate in the race that is saying that the status quo is not good enough and that we can do better. He is the only progressive in the race who stands for the principles and values upon which America was built, but has yet to live up to. As a third-generation organizer, a minister, and a product of civil rights labor movement giants who marched with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I share Bernie Sanders' vision for improving the lives of everyday working-class Americans in this country. And the truth is, you all, we have been burned by career politicians, establishment politics, and the status quo for far too long. And as a result of that, the system of government in our country is broken. It's broken when we have a government that does not recognize access to water as a human right. We know it's broken when we have a government that determines if people live or die based on their zip code or the size of their bank account or even their race. We know that our government system is broken when we see that the subsidies to the wealth continue through tax cuts for corporations and the rich, while the working class and the poor are stuck with astronomical health care costs and insufficient wages, trying to make their ends meet day by day. And so I came here just briefly to let everyone here know today that it's time to push back. It's time to move forward. And Senator Sanders is the pushback and move forward revolutionary leader this country needs at this time and at this moment. Lastly, I want to say that Bernie Sanders speaks to every single issue that I'm passionate for and I fight for every single day on the ground here in Detroit. Issues like ending the housing crisis, fighting to end homelessness, making sure that we have affordable quality housing for everyone in Detroit in this country. Issues like passing real criminal justice and gun violence reform, investing in public education, and an issue that we've been fighting for years in Detroit, and that is making water an affordable human right by restoring service to more than 100,000 Detroiters who have had their water shut off in Detroit. And so I come to let you all know that let's all join together. And let's march into the voting booth this Tuesday to burn down the walls of oppression, to burn down the walls of inequality and inequity. Let's burn down the walls to the systems that create and exacerbate abject poverty. And let's burn down the walls of establishment politics that fail to deliver for the working and middle class people. God bless you all, and join me this Tuesday for Senator Bernie Sanders for United States President. God bless you all.
This next man needs no introduction. The doctor is in the house. Give it up for Dr. Cornel West.
Detroit, 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 Detroit. Detroit. Oh, yeah. Oh, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to bounce back in such a way that we send a message to the Democratic Party, to the nation, and the world. Our campaign is strong as ever. And I want to be very honest with you tonight. McCoy Tyner died today. He was the piano player for the John Coltrane Quartet. 81 years old. And you all know he played a love supreme with Coltrane's death. A love supreme. The Bernie campaign is a love train. Yes, it is. It's a love for poor people. It's a love for working people. We don't care what color you are. We don't care what your sexual orientation is. We don't care what your national identity is. We don't care what your regional identity is. If you're a human being who's concerned about being a force for good, we own the love train. And we know that justice is what love looks like in public. Just like tenderness is what love feels like in private. And the Bernie campaign, connected to the John Coltrane Quartet, is one that says that we are a movement, not just a campaign. We're in solidarity together across various lines because we know we have a leader, we have a spokesperson who embodies that fundamental commitment to justice. And our dear brother Bernie from Brooklyn, the greatest borough in the world, and he is our Jewish brother who decides, oh yes, but you all know skin pigmentation doesn't determine your spiritual and moral formation. You got to make choices in life. And he decides that hesed sitting at the center of the genius of Hebrew scripture, that steadfast love, that loving kindness to the orphan, the widow, the fatherless, the motherless, the poor, the persecuted, the subjugated, the exploited, they will be at the center of his vision. He has been doing that for over 45 years. And our problem is we've got some milquetoast neoliberal politicians they're still tied to Wall Street, still tied to the military-industrial complex. They still tied to supporting NAFTA-like policies. They still tied to privatizing too many of our schools. They still tied to being like Milli Vanilli, lip-singing progressive views, but when it comes down to being real, they don't have what it takes. Let's just be honest about it. And I tell you, I had to cancel 3 events today in Boston. I said, no, I'm going to be with my brother. I'm going to be with you all. We need all hands on deck. We got our backs against the wall. We coming out swinging. We coming out swinging. And I come from a black people, hated for 400 years, and teach the world so much about love, like that Love Supreme, or Stevie Wonder's Love in the Need of Love, or Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, or Toni Morrison's Beloved, or James Baldwin's Essays. But we know we got to swing, and it don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. And we swinging in the name of love and justice, no hatred and revenge. There's no hatred in this movement of people. We hate injustice. We hate exploitation. We hate occupation. We hate subjugation. That's the kind of hatred we have. But it's love for one another. But we got a corporate media too. they just haven't treated my dear brother Bernie fair. And it upsets me. Because his critique of the establishment is a critique of the establishment across the board. We need serious truth-telling, witness-bearing, and justice-seeking, not because we want a favor or a bias. Just be honest about the unprecedented historic work that we are doing, trying to save American democracy and all of its substance. That's all we trying to do. We trying to make sure the planet is still in place. We trying to make sure that the children, no matter what color, can live lives of decency and dignity. We're going to make sure that working people and trade unions are affirmed. We are going to. Oh, yes, I know that too, my brother. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we are going to stand up and try to embody the best of what has gone into the shaping of the American empire and this fragile experiment in democracy. And you only do that when you are courageous, willing to take a risk, willing to step out on nothing and land on something. That's what we are. That's what Bernie is. And Detroit, you understand. So I have the blessing now to introduce to you one of the great and grand forces for good in the U.S. Congress. There's nobody like her in so many ways. She is Detroit's own Rashida Tlaib. My dear sister Rashida. Nobody like it.
Dr. West and the Dean. I want to thank you all so much. Welcome. Welcome, Senator Bernie Sanders, to the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit. This is where we birth movements. This is where every corner is a reminder of the labor rights movement, the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the immigrant rights movement. This movement, as you know, is part of a bigger community, not just about one person. So I am so proud that I am the chair of the Michigan for Bernie 2020 campaign. This Not Me, Us movement includes vice chairs, our Detroit's very own City Council President Pro Tem Mary Sheffield. Woo-woo! Always on the forefront for water rights, housing rights, criminal justice reform. The courage she has on City Council these days is very, very rare. So we want to really thank her so much for being here. Our next person, our DNC member, Meshell Dietrich. Former UAW President Bob King. Not here, but part of our team is State Representatives Abdullah Hamoud, Yusuf Rabi, Isaac Robinson, Ryan Bennett, the business manager for the West Michigan Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union, and the Supreme Court Justice of Nottawassee Huron Band of Potawatomi Indians, Holly Bird. So please welcome them to the stage. I don't know about you, I've enjoyed watching Glover and Dr. West all over the city, meeting my seniors, but welcome them, please. Thank them all so much for their leadership. When I say Bernie, you say Sanders. Bernie!
have no idea. To be up here, this journey that started with my Palestinian immigrant parents, my father who had to drop out of school in 4th grade, and my mother who reached 8th grade, came to the United States for something better, for something that seemed impossible at the time. My dad's first real job was at the Ford assembly line in Downriver and Flat Rock. He joined, do you want me to do it now? Oh. He joined the UAW, and we soon became what we call a union family who cherished the responsibility of voting and knew the importance of solidarity. My Yaba, what we dad in Arabic, my Yaba, when I turned 18, he said, you need to register to vote, and then he said, happy birthday. My parents always strived for better opportunities where we didn't have to struggle like they did in war-stricken and poor communities. They gave us more than they can ever know. And in return, they watched their eldest daughter graduate from high school, college, law school, and later be sworn into the United States Congress proudly wearing the Palestinian flag. And you know they weren't ready for this. They weren't ready for me. And you know what? Instead of it getting easier with hard work and an education, it got more difficult. The harder I worked, the longer the hours, the bigger the sacrifices we were making. It got more difficult to live free of debt. I've made my own American dream by working hard and achieving what my parents couldn't. Some of the hardest days of my life was working full-time while attending classes on the weekend because I couldn't afford to go back to school and not work because I could lose my health insurance. When I had my first son, Adam, I had to bring him to work with me because I couldn't afford childcare. I would nurse Adam right there at my desk, taking calls, meeting deadlines. My emotional health came second because I had to work and be a mom. Sometimes I felt like I could not breathe. My eldest son, Adam, is 14 years old today, and I am still paying my student loans, folks. To think that my son will hopefully start going to college in just 4 years, and just now, I'm starting to feel like I can settle, but thinking about I have to get more loans while he has to go to college while I'm still paying mine. When choosing who we want to support for president, when I chose who I wanted to support for president, it wasn't difficult because I looked at it not as a Republican, as a Democrat, as anything, a Congress member, anything. I looked at it honestly. Who do I want to support that will have the future of my two sons in their hands? And I couldn't think of anybody but Bernie Sanders who wasn't going to sell them out. He has the courage, the vision, and one of the strongest grassroots movements I have seen to take on corporate greed and college debt and make college free for everyone. Legendary, and I want you to know, legendary Detroit activist Grace Lee Boggs said that transformative change doesn't happen because somebody introduced a bill in Congress or by the grace of someone sitting in the White House. It starts with us, in the streets, in our communities, building movements right here, on the ground, in hand with people directly impacted by injustice. When you are rooted in community, you know in your bones that doing nothing isn't an option, that throwing your hands up and saying that change we deserve is impossible just isn't good enough. I am done, God am I done, with presidential campaigns that are all about personalities or polish. Our country needs people-powered movement that makes sure that it's about us. I want to bring people into this room that isn't with us anymore. And late Mama Lila Cabell Look her up, folks. Her dream, she was a water warrior, and her dream was to one day see water become a human right for all, and about coming into community. And that is possible with Bernie Sanders as our president. I personally know what doing nothing looks like right here in my district. I know what it feels like. We are reminded every day that corporate greed is a disease. It's one of the biggest threats to our democracy and our well-being. All of us are worth fighting for. And unified and together, we are so much stronger than the people who want to see us fail. Too many among us are struggling to live under inhumane healthcare system where you die if you can't afford the bills that let healthcare CEOs live in golden palaces. Seniors who helped build this country are living out their years in poverty, all because we haven't mustered the collective courage in government to insist on a different way. We hear elected officials, I do personally, talk about a lot about the middle class, but not nearly about the P word, poverty, that is killing us. Millions of Americans are expendable to the CEOs who dictate our public policy, and too many of our representatives are complicit, and I say enough. This is a once-in-a-lifetime president. This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment in our country to elect someone that won't sell us out. It would feel good to have a president that you didn't have to check him all the time. So I have some instructions for you. Now, all of you might know I'm the eldest of 14. I tend to be a mama bear, but I also have things for you to do, and I need you to do them, please. It's important because 2020 is about showing up for others, folks. It really is, because when you cast that vote, please know that vote isn't just for you. It's for the kids caged at the border. It's for that mother. It's for that mother that doesn't know how she can afford insulin for her daughter, for her children. It's for all of the people now living in poverty. It's for my neighbors right here in Detroit that get their water shut off, their kids taken away the following day. Show up for her. Now, Michigan has changed some laws, so they're going to underestimate us, but the laws have changed for us. Let me tell you what's going to happen. Now you can go in and actually vote early. Tomorrow, some of your clerk offices are open. They're satellite offices. Find them. Vote early. Take somebody with you. I learned early on, work your backyard. Now, I'm not talking about walking down your street, folks. I'm talking about there are people in your family. You know who they are. You know who they are. Now, you want to social shame them like I do my brothers and sisters, you can do that. But mostly what I do, I send that text, I call them. They rely on you. You'll be surprised when I talk to my mother, how she was like, wait, Tuesday's election day. I said, Mama, of course it is. So now I have to put on my calendar, making sure somebody takes her to the polls. Please work your block. We have 4 days to show them they underestimated us. Tuesday, March 10th, I want you to understand every single one of us is going to need to step up and win this thing. There are people who share our values who have simply never been asked to join the movement. I have talked to them. They come up to me. They said, hey, when is the election? I want to support this because I want universal health care. I want to make water a human right. I want to end poverty in our country. I want education that is equitable. They tell me this all the time. This is when you say, lift your hand for good. We may march, we may donate to causes, but when we lift our hand and we vote, man, our vote is equal to those CEOs. They can try to spend the money, but nothing can replace this amount of people power movement that is going to the polls and voting. So take some friends, promise me you will. I have a voting block in my family with 14 of us and their spouses and so forth. No one's going to mess with the Tlaib family. But you all got to work your block, work your backyard, and get people out, please. We deserve a president who understands that the corporate assault on our lives existed way before Trump, folks. And you all know it. And it is going to exist after Trump. Someone who will never back down from fight with the wealthy and the powerful, who will call them out. God, is it liberating when he calls them out and brings our movement to the front yards. Someone who looks at a problem and finds the most transformative solutions, who isn't constrained by the corrupt conventional wisdom of what's possible or worth fighting for. Someone who knows that we are far more stronger together than we are apart. That change comes from our collective will, not from the generosity of the powerful. Someone, and this is important to me as a mother, someone with empathy for young people who are crying out for the future. Someone who knows that things must fundamentally change, that we have to end structural racism. We have to end the structures that are in place that are oppressing all of us. We deserve someone who just simply will not sell us out. I am in awe of the courage and compassion it takes to fight for working families for the decades like Bernie has, and I've only been there for a year. To stand up and take positions that are right, regardless of whether they're popular. Bernie has a vision for our country, for the United States of America, where no child goes to sleep hungry. No mother goes to sleep worrying about paying her next rent check. No grandfather skipping medication because he can't afford it. He is bringing a movement of working class people. Don't you feel it? I mean, I feel it just alone in this room. Who are ready to fight for a future we deserve and rid ourselves of the disease of corporate greed. He's winning states all over the country, and he's about to win Michigan. So my fellow neighbors and community members, I want you to know another world is possible, and we are all part of building it. So help me in welcoming the next president of the United States. United States Senator Bernie Sanders.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people.
So I messed up again. Hold on.
Power to the people right on.
Come on up. I messed up. Now, we got some people with us. I have to bring up the mayor, Lumberman Stead, because I forgot completely he's in the house. I want you all to welcome my colleague, my social justice brother in the movement, Mayor Lumberman.
How are you doing, Detroit? How are you doing, Detroit? I bring you greetings all the way from Jackson, Mississippi, where I have the pleasure of serving as mayor. But I want to be clear that I am a native son of Detroit, Michigan. In fact, I'm told that I have some family here. I'll take a selfish moment and shout out to my family. How are y'all doing? Listen, I want to speak with you for a moment and share with you what brings me to this stage and share with you why I endorse Senator Bernie Sanders. 3 years ago, Bernie Sanders endorsed me as we ran on an unapologetically radical campaign, progressive campaign in Jackson, Mississippi. where we were told, just as Senator Sanders is told, that maybe I was too radical to lead our city. That maybe we would serve as a divisive force and not one that would unify the people. And so I did my homework. I learned and I studied what the word radical means. And what I learned is that a radical is a person who seeks change. And if we look outside of these walls into a community that is in need of change, into a community where there is infrastructure where the water doesn't work as it should, then we should be as radical as the circumstances dictate it should be. If we see people who are overtaxed $600 million, then we should be as radical as the circumstances dictate we should be. If we look across history, where I'm from in Mississippi, at some of the people that we revere most, some of the people who have contributed to the most long-standing change, they were radicals. Ida B. Wells was a radical. Medgar Evers was a radical. Fannie Lou Hamer, who changed the complexion of the Democratic Party, was a radical. And so I'm happy to stand with my friend Bernie Sanders, who is a radical too. You see, I come from a legacy of activists, and so I have a propensity to talk to some of the larger things in life. And so when I campaigned and I'm knocking on doors and I'm talking about all of the things that we're talking about today, when we're talking about criminal justice reform, human rights, equity, and all of those things, invariably you're confronted with someone at the door that says, yeah, that's good, young brother, but how are you going to fix that pothole in the middle of my street, right? And so I share with them that is exactly what our mission must be, that we have to connect pothole to pothole and community to community so people in Jackson, Mississippi understand that there's a community that looks just like theirs in Detroit, Michigan, suffering from the same infrastructure problem. A community which is suffering from these same problems and in the process of fixing that pothole. What we ultimately learn is that your problem was never the pothole in the first place. Your problem is that you don't control the decision-making process that leads to a pothole being fixed. Your problem is that you don't control the decision-making process that controls the curriculum for your children. The problem is that you don't control the decision-making process that leads to universal health care so that everybody has the human right to take care of their family. And that is why I support Senator Bernie Sanders, because he has the backbone to support the issues which support our people. They try to dissuade you. They try to tell you that you don't want a democratic socialist as your president. Well, we have some news. We have some news. First and foremost, he won't even be the first socialist president. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a socialist. And Dr. Martin Luther King said it best when he said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, but this country must do a better job of distributing the wealth to all of God's children. And so we know that that is a mission to move us away from the policies that really affect our lives, the policies that move our families to where they must go. And so we ultimately have to come to the same understanding that King came to not long before he died. King had a conversation with Harry Belafonte where he said, listen, Harry, in the South, we're going to win this integration struggle. But I'm beginning to wonder. I'm beginning to fear that we may be integrating into a burning house. He said, I see a system that abuses labor and abuses working people. And if people can't be fed, if they can't take care of their families, then it is senseless to integrate into a house that looks like that. And so we stand, just like Bernie Sanders stood with King. I stand with Bernie because he walked with King. I stand with Bernie because he walked with Mississippi workers. I stand with Bernie because he walks with us. Bernie understands that it is not about me. It is about us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Not me, us. Ladies and gentlemen, join me welcoming to the stage the next President of the United States, Senator Bernard Sanders. Give him a round of applause.
From here. Thank you. Let me take a second to thank all those who have spoken already. Let me thank Soul Deep DJ. Let me thank Anna Birch for the music. Protomotor for their band. The War and Treaty for their music. Justin Oweno for his remarks. Let me thank Bob King, the former president of the UAW, for all the work that he has done. Let me thank Sean Crawford, a UAW member. Let me thank Councilwoman Mary Sheffield. And let me thank the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi for being with us, Chokwe Lumumba. Let me thank Dr. Cornel West. And let me thank your very own outstanding, remarkable Congresswoman, Rashida Tlaib. Now, my problem is that after hearing all these great speakers, I'm not quite sure what I can say, because they're all great. But let me just say this. We are assembled together to make sure that in this consequential election, together we are going to defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. We are going to defeat Trump because the American people, no matter what their political views may be, understand we cannot have a pathological liar in the White House. They understand we cannot have a president who is running a corrupt administration. A president who has apparently never read the Constitution of the United States. A president who thinks that he is above the law. A president who is a bully and a vindictive person. This guy can't even get along with the people he appoints, let alone the rest of the world. Now, Donald Trump may not be a great believer in democracy, but he is going to learn what democracy is about in November when we throw him out of office. Now, Trump is not only a liar, he is a fraud. This is a guy who came to Michigan in 2016, and he said, you know, folks, I am going to provide health care to everybody. Remember that? He lied. Instead of providing health care to everybody, he tried to throw 32 million people off the health care that they have and do away with the protections for people who have pre-existing conditions. Trump said his tax plan would not benefit billionaires like himself. He lied. 83% of the benefits over a 10-year period go to the top 1%. And Trump said, oh, he was a different type of Republican. He will never cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. He lied. Look at his last several budgets, massive cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Now, to defeat Trump, we are going to need the largest voter turnout in the history of our country. We are going to need a campaign of energy and excitement. And as I look at the thousands of people here tonight, we are the campaign of energy and excitement. We are the campaign that will bring working class people who have given up on the political process back into the polling booths. We are the campaign that will significantly increase voter turnout in the general election among young people. We are the campaign that will create the largest voter turnout in history, the campaign that will defeat Donald Trump. When this Democratic primary process began way back when, there were 20 candidates who were competing. Today, we are down to 2. And let me just say this. What I am absolutely convinced of, and know to be a fact, is that all of those 20 candidates, including Joe Biden and myself, are pledged to support the winner of the Democratic primary process. Joe Biden has said, if I win, he will support me. I have said that if Biden wins, I will support him. Because all of us know that while we have differences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those differences tonight, that at the end of the day, we come together to defeat Trump. And let me tell you why I think our campaign is the strongest campaign to defeat Trump. And basically, I believe that you cannot defeat Trump through the same old, tired politics of yesteryear. It is hard to create energy and enthusiasm when Joe Biden's campaign has received funding from over 60 billionaires in this country. It is hard to defeat Trump when Joe Biden has a super PAC funded by the very wealthy. And the reason for that is that people instinctively understand. You don't need to have a PhD in political science. People understand that you're not going to stand up for the working class and the middle class when you are dependent upon contributions from the wealthiest people in this country. So our campaign is quite different. We don't have a super PAC. We don't want a super PAC. I don't go to Wall Street to beg for money. I don't go to rich people's homes to beg for money. We have in our campaign, and everybody here should be proud of this, we have received more campaign contributions, 9 million contributions, from more Americans, 2 million Americans, than any campaign in the history of the United States of America. Our contributions comes from working class people. They come from teachers. They come from factory workers. As somebody who grew up in a working class family who lived in a rent-controlled apartment my entire youth, I am proud to tell you that this is a campaign of the working class, by the working class, and for the working class. Now, I am a senator, so I have a huge ego, and I am flattered by all the sounds and the support. But let me be very clear, as I've said throughout day one, this campaign is not about Bernie, it is about you, and you, it's about us. This campaign is not just your traditional political campaign, vote for me and I'm going to save the world. That's not what this campaign is about. Because we understand that real change in America never takes place from the top on down, always the bottom on up. This is us, not me. We are in this together. But when we talk about the differences with my friend Joe Biden, and he is my friend, I think it's important for the people of Michigan and the people of America to know the difference in our records. Joe has been around for a while, and I've been around for a while. How do we differ? What's our records? Who stood up when the going was tough? That was just a rhetorical question. I didn't expect an answer, but let me start off. Way back under George W. Bush and Dick Cheney, they told us that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, that we had to go in and invade Iraq. I never believed a word they said. And I did everything that I could to prevent the U.S. invasion of Iraq, which turned out to be the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of our country. I opposed that war Joe Biden voted for that war. Joe Biden and I have a very different record on an issue of great importance to the people of Michigan, the Midwest, and in fact, the whole country. I saw trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China as attacks on the working class of this country. I did not believe then, and I do not believe now, that American workers should be forced to compete against people in Mexico and in China who are earning starvation wages. I helped lead the opposition to NAFTA and PNTR with China, which have cost us over 4 million good-paying jobs in this country. And that includes 150,000 jobs here in Michigan, 160,000 jobs in Pennsylvania, and 100,000 jobs in Wisconsin. Now, if we are going to defeat Trump in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, it will be very hard for a candidate who voted for these disastrous trade agreements. "12 years ago, as some of you will remember, the crooks, and I use that word advisedly, on Wall Street, through their recklessness, through their illegal behavior, nearly destroyed our economy." You all remember that? Great Recession. And after these guys nearly destroyed our economy, they came running to the Congress and they said, "Oh, please bail us out." I voted against the Wall Street bailout. Joe Biden voted for the Wall Street bailout. There was a bankruptcy bill that was supported by the credit card companies, and boy, we can talk about what a bunch of rip-off artists the credit card industry is today. We got millions of people paying 20, 25% interest rates on their credit cards, which is nothing less than usury. Usury, that's what they're charging us. And anyhow, they wanted this bankruptcy bill, which would make it harder for working class people to get out of debt, including young people with student debt. I strongly opposed that bill. Joe Biden voted for that bill. Today, as all of you know, the women of our country are under unprecedented political assault. And by the way, let me say to the men who are here, if there was ever a moment that we men have got to stand with the women, this is that moment. We understand that the Trump administration, state governments all over the country, and the Supreme Court are working feverishly to deny the women of this country the right to control their own bodies. And I have to say that on this issue, the right of women to control their own bodies, Joe Biden has... That's right. On this issue, Joe Biden has not been consistent and, in fact, has not had a good record. 2 years after Roe v. Wade was decided, Senator Biden said this, and I quote, "I don't like the Supreme Court decision on abortion. I think it went too far. I don't think that a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body." Further, Joe repeatedly voted for the Hyde Amendment, which denies low-income women access to Medicaid funds in order to determine their own reproductive decisions. At this moment in history, at this very dangerous moment for a woman's right to control their own bodies, I think we need a candidate that can be trusted on this issue. I am proud to tell you I have a 100% pro-choice voting record. And it is no different with regard to our brothers and sisters in the gay community. Today, thank God, it is relatively easy to be a champion of gay rights. But as some of you know, some of the older folks here know, that was not the case 25 years ago. 25 years ago, if you stood up for gay rights, you took a political risk. At that time, some 25 years ago, I stood with the LGBT community on a very difficult vote, and that was on a bill brought forth by right-wing Republicans called the so-called Defense of Marriage Act. And what the right-wing Republicans were saying is that the only form of marriage that essentially could be recognized was between a man and a woman. 25 years ago, I voted against that bill. Because I believe then and I believe now that people have a right to marry whoever they want, regardless of their gender. Joe Biden voted for that bill. We are going to win this campaign, and we're going to win here in Michigan. Because the people of this state and of this country are sick and tired of an economy and a government that works for the 1%. They want an economy that works for working families. They want a president who has the guts to take on Wall Street and not just take their money. They want a president who's going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, who charge us by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. They want a president who will take on the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry. And we're going to win here in Michigan and defeat Trump because we know that a $7.25 minimum wage is a starvation wage. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We believe that women should not make 80 cents on the dollar compared to men? Equal pay for equal work? And in a state like Michigan, which has such a strong history of trade union activity, we believe that workers around this country who want to join unions should be able to do so. And that is why we have a proposal that will double trade union membership over the next 4 years. We are going to create millions of good-paying union jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. And that includes rebuilding our water systems in America. Whether it is Flint, Michigan, or any place else, I don't want Americans turning on their water tap and seeing toxic, poisonous water coming out of it. And we're going to win this election because we're changing national priorities and putting education at the top of the list. Instead of giving tax breaks to billionaires, we're going to invest in our kids and in education. And that means universal, high-quality, affordable child care for every family in America. It means tripling funding for low-income Title I public school districts. And because we believe in education, we believe in teachers. And to all the young people who are here, I plead with you, give thought to becoming a teacher. We need great teachers. We need more African American teachers. We need more Latino teachers. We need more special education teachers. And that is why we're going to fight to make sure that no teacher in America earns less than $60,000 a year. And when we talk about education, we believe that we must make public colleges and universities tuition-free. "12 years ago, Congress bailed out Wall Street. 2 years ago, Trump and his friends gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% in large corporations. Well, if they could do that for their rich campaign contributors, we can cancel all student debt in America. We're going to win this election because we believe that it is time to end the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. We believe that health care is a human right, not a privilege. We believe that every American, regardless of income, should be able to go to the doctor and the hospital whenever they need to. We believe that the United States should not be paying by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Some of you may remember that a number of months ago I was here in Detroit with a group of diabetics, and we took a trip to Windsor, Ontario to buy insulin. And this is how insane and rigged the healthcare system is. We went a few miles into Windsor, Ontario. We bought the same exact insulin from the same company for 1/10 the price charged here in Michigan. So tonight we say to the drug companies, you will stop ripping off the American people. Last year, despite the fact that we are paying twice as much per person on health care as the people of any other country, $11,000 for every man, woman, and child, 87 million Americans were uninsured or underinsured. At least, minimum, 30,000 people died last year because they didn't get to a doctor when they should because they didn't have insurance. If you can believe it, 500,000 people went bankrupt because of medically related bills. Meanwhile, the healthcare industry last year made $100 billion in profits. So tonight we say loudly and proudly that the function of a humane and rational healthcare system is to provide quality care to all, not to make huge profits for the healthcare industry. And whether the industry likes it or not, we will pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. And when we talk about issues that this country has got to deal with, we are going to bring major, major reform to a broken and racist criminal justice system. This is America. We should not have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And those people are disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American. Together, we're going to invest in our young people in jobs and education. Not more jails, not more incarceration. Tonight, there are 400,000 people in jail who have not been convicted of anything. Do you know that? They were arrested, they were charged with a crime, but they weren't convicted. They are in jail for the crime of being poor. They can't afford cash bail. We're going to end cash bail in America. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. And we are going to end the destructive war on drugs. Turns out, as some of you know, there are some things that a president can do by executive order. There are some things that need legislation. Just turns out that by executive order, we can legalize marijuana in every state in this country. And that is exactly what I intend to do. Let me ask you all a question. How many people here know somebody who has been arrested for possession of marijuana? That is why we are going to move to expunge the records of those arrested for possession of marijuana. At the end of the day, we do not want to be the country that has over 2 million people in jail, where we're spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans. It costs less money to send somebody to the University of Michigan than to lock them up. Let's send them to the University of Michigan. And when we talk about systems that are broken and racist, we are going to bring major, major change to the immigration system in this country. I am the proud son of an immigrant. My father came to this country from Poland at the age, all right, came to this country from Poland at the age of 17 without a penny in his pocket, couldn't speak a word of English, and had very limited education. I have some familiarity with the immigrant experience. On day one, we end the demonization of the immigrant community in America. On day one, we will restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. On day one, we begin to change our border policy so that we will never again have federal agents snatching babies from the arms of their mothers. The American people want comprehensive immigration reform, and that is what we will deliver on. Together, we will pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for the undocumented. Because that is the right thing to do, and that is what the American people want us to do. All of us, whether we're Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Conservatives, Progressives, whatever we are appalled and horrified by the level of gun violence in this country. And my promise to you is that we will pass the most far-reaching gun safety legislation ever presented in the history of this country. Donald Trump and the Republican leadership are scared to death of the NRA. Our administration will not be intimidated by the NRA. We will pass universal background checks. We will end the gun show loophole. And we will do what the American people want, and that is to end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. You know, as a senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate from some conservative Republican senators. And that's a pretty painful experience. And their mantra is, as you know, they believe in small government. They believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. That's what they say. But I say to those hypocrites, If you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, then you got to understand that it is women who will control their own bodies, not the government. So my promise to you is I will never nominate anyone to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. We will move to codify, put into law, Roe v. Wade. Trump and his friends want to make massive cuts to Planned Parenthood. Well, we got some bad news for them. We're going to expand funding for Planned Parenthood. So here we are tonight, a few days in front of the Michigan primary. And I'm here tonight to ask for your support. And I'm asking you, because part of what the political revolution is about is changing political culture in America. I know that many of you have friends who think that politics is bullshit, they don't vote, right? And you told them that you went to a Bernie Sanders rally tonight and they think you're crazy, right? Right. You could have been home doing something productive like watching TV, but here you are. And it is important to start talking to your friends and say, you know what? Stop complaining about high rents. Stop complaining about low wages. Stop complaining about racism and sexism and homophobia. Stop complaining about climate change. Because if we do not get our act together in terms of climate change, the planet we're going to be leaving, our kids and future generations will be increasingly uninhabitable. And tell your friends to stop moaning and groaning about student debt. Tell them that you're tired of hearing them complaining, that instead of complaining, they got to stand up, fight back, and get involved in the political process. This campaign is not just a political campaign, it is a movement of millions of people. Trump and his friends, in a very calculated way, think they can win re-election by dividing our people up based on the color of their skin, based on where they were born, based on their religion, based on their sexual orientation. But we got a secret for Trump. It ain't gonna work, Donald. You're trying to divide us up. Our campaign is gonna bring us together. Black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight, we're gonna stand together. We're sick and tired of the hatred and the bigotry coming out of Washington. So what the political revolution is about is creating an economy and a government that represents the needs of working families all over this country. It is about taking on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry. It is about taking on the military-industrial complex and the prison-industrial complex. But here is the truth. No president can do it alone. We need millions of people to be involved in the political process fighting for justice. All of you know that is the history of how real change takes place in America. It's the history of the labor movement. It's the history of the civil rights movement. It's the history of the women's movement. It's the history of the gay rights movement. It's the history of the environmental movement. That is how change takes place, when people look around them and say to the billionaire class, sorry, the status quo is not working for me. We want decent wages. We want to expand Social Security, not cut it. We want to make sure that every kid in this country has the opportunity to get a great education. We understand and will fight to make sure that health care is a human right, not a privilege. We will tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this country and the world. So that's what this campaign is about. Not complicated. We are bringing people together. Now, as a United States Senator, I am more than aware of the power of the 1%. And let me be very honest with you, because I deal with these people every day. They have unlimited amounts of money. They own the media. They are the people who buy and sell politicians. They determine whether jobs stay in Michigan or go to Mexico or China. These people have enormous power, and they have created, over the last 50 years, more income and wealth inequality in America than we have seen in 100 years. They have created an economy where 3 people now own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. They have created an economy where billionaires are trying to elect the next president. I don't have a PhD in economics. I don't have a PhD in math. But this I do know, that at the end of the day, 99% is a hell of a bigger number than 1%. So our job now is to stand together around an agenda which works for all of us, not just the 1%. Our job now is to win the primary on Tuesday here in Michigan. Our job is to win the Democratic nomination. Our job is to defeat Donald Trump. And our job is to transform this country so that we have a government that respects and fights for ordinary people, not just the wealthy. Thank you all very much.